For the past 2 years, I've spent an inordinate amount of time focused on the issues of police abuse and accountability. But it hadn't always been that way. I used to believe that the people who were either beaten or killed by the police probably deserved it. They were probably committing some type of crime, or they had engaged in other crimes that led them down a path to the position that they were in. I felt that if they just lived a better life and if they just made better decisions, that they wouldn't be in those situations. If they lived a life like I did, I lived a life of no excuses. I grew up poor, a single father, running a household in government housing, but I graduated high school. I was the first to go to college. I went to West Point, did the military thing, went to Stanford, got my MBA, got a great high-paying job in New York. I was involved in philanthropy, working on nonprofit boards. I was mentoring and teaching kids. I thought if other people could just make the right decisions, there wouldn't be a problem of police abuse. But then on January 1st, 2012, I realized the hard way that it's not that simple. It's not just about people making the right decisions and living a good life. That night, I was the sober, designated driver driving a buddy home from a New Year's party. We stopped at a gas station to fill up with gas, and there I saw 2 Austin police officers assaulting a woman who hadn't committed any crime. I pulled out my BlackBerry for the first time in my life and took a picture of the police and tried to get them to stop. They saw that, they came after me, they assaulted me, arrested me, and charged me with the felony crime of spitting in a cop's face. And in Texas, that carries a penalty of 2 to 10 years, a minimum of 2 years if you're convicted. Well, when I got out of jail the next day, my friend Ben said there were witnesses, but the cops didn't let me talk to them. So we immediately went out, flyered to town, went to social media asking for witnesses to step forward. And several of them did, including one who took cell phone video of the incident. Now, with witnesses that said that the cops lied, that we were innocent, and that the cops committed crimes that day, we thought that we were in the clear. However, the police didn't arrest these 2 cops who committed these crimes. They didn't fire them. They didn't even discipline them. They did, however, double down on me and the innocent woman that they assaulted. In fact, 11 days later, they went back and charged that woman that they assaulted with 2 more crimes. And so it was just really frustrating not knowing, why was it that we were being victimized. Now, the police officers, on the other hand, they were protected by the police. The police officer that assaulted me and charged me with the crime, he made $128,000 that year. And at the end of that year, ahead of 1,700 other officers in the Austin Police Department, they named him the hero of the year, despite the fact that every cop knew that he committed felony crimes that night. What type of society calls a hero someone that they know committed crimes and protects that guy and is willing to prosecute the victims of those crimes? I asked that question because I know that many other people have been victimized. I was not alone. When that story hit the news, people came out of the woodwork to tell me their personal stories of abuse. There was a guy who was taken to a secluded lot and had his jaw shattered by the police. When the family asked, how did this happen? They said, we don't know. We found him like that after a bar fight. There was a guy who spent 2 years in prison for the exact same crime that I committed. Problem was, he was poor and Hispanic, so he didn't have a prayer. And then there was a woman who was walking home in Austin. They thought she was a prostitute. They raped her at gunpoint. So I know that this happens all the time. And for every story of police abuse that we hear about, there are hundreds, thousands of other stories of abuse that we never hear about. So I launched the Peaceful Streets Project, a grassroots organization whose goal is to create culture change within society so that people know their rights, stand up for their rights, join communities to stand up for the rights of one another, and hold police accountable. And we've had a lot of success with the Peaceful Streets Project over the past 2 years. We've held direct actions across the country. We've done cop watches where we go out and film police to make sure that they're not resorting to violence. We've given people a platform to share their stories of abuse. And to raise awareness, we've held 2 national police accountability summits where people could come together and join communities to find ways to fight back against police abuse. However, I realize that direct action alone isn't going to solve the problem. It's going to take empathy. We're going to need to add empathy to the equation. Why is it that the overwhelming majority of the people who are assaulted by police, who are victims of police abuse, are either people of color or people who are extremely poor? My supposition is that there's two primary reasons. One, they know they can get away with it. Those people typically don't have resources to fight back in the criminal courts or to sue civilly. And secondly, and more disturbing, is that they know that society doesn't care about those groups as much. They don't have empathy for them. So they're not going to rally behind them. They're not going to fight for them. They're not going to fight for a better, more social justice. So, in order to build empathy, what can we do? Well, of course, we can look to one another and we can, point out the social injustices, all this. But the fact is that our society is no different than any other society. We typically, in this society and elsewhere, we turn a blind eye to the injustice and to the oppression of marginalized groups. In the United States alone, we have a terrible history of this. We turn a blind eye to the slaughter of the Native Americans. We turned a blind eye for centuries to the enslavement of African Americans. We turned a blind eye to the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. And right now, we are collectively turning a blind eye to the oppression through the law and order, the justice system of poor people and people of color. Did you know that in the past 10 years, more people have been killed at the hands of police than soldiers have died in Iraq? Those are people who never got to face a jury, whether or not they were even suspected of committing a crime. I'm going to share a couple names with you, just two. One is Larry Eugene Jackson Jr. He was a black man in his 30s, a father who had committed no crime. He was not armed, and an overzealous police officer in Austin, Texas, chased him down underneath a bridge and shot him execution style in the back of the head. There's another man named Kelly Thomas. He was a homeless man in Fullerton, California. He was unarmed, and he hadn't been committing a crime. Police came up to him at a bus stop, and one of the cops is caught on video saying, "You see these fists? They're about to F you up." And then a bunch of police started beating him and killed him. Now, I could tell you hundreds of stories like this, but in almost every instance, the cops get away with those crimes. They're never held accountable. Where's the empathy? In Austin, Texas, where I moved from, there's actually a law that makes it illegal to be homeless. It's called no sit, no lie. These people who have no private space to go to, they're told if they're caught sitting or lying down in a public space, that they will be harassed or arrested. Where's the empathy? Now, I'm very, very lucky. I don't consider myself unlucky for what I went through. I'm educated. I'm not black, Hispanic, or poor. But despite all of my advantages, there were people who were there that night who saw what happened who never did step forward. At least a few did. I had a mentor from West Point who told me that because I stood up to the police, he never wanted to speak to me again. And I had classmates from West Point who said, I probably deserved what I got. And I received death threats because I formed the Peaceful Streets Project and tried to hold police accountable. I can only imagine, though, how hard it would be to fight those charges if I was unemployed, homeless, black, Hispanic, if I had drug charges in my past, if it wasn't for the witnesses who stepped forward, or for the video that showed that I was innocent. I can't fathom how hard it is for so many people, but I can empathize, and I hope you will as well. Thank you.